Hey friends, how's everyone doing today? Hope you're all having an amazing day so far. Tamie M coming to you from TamieMCoaching.com. And what I want to talk to you about today is a question that I get asked all the time. My hair out of my face here. A question that I get asked all the time. I would have to say at least probably 50% of the people that I talk to sooner or later ask me this question. It comes up. How do I know for sure that I'm not the narcissist? How do I know for sure that I'm not the one who's the narcissist? I hear it all the time. So that's what we're going to talk about today. In case we haven't met before, once again, my name is Tamie M. I am an empowerment coach for women. I help women break free from painful relationship patterns through a proven 8-week process called the Freedom Class. And if you'd like some information on that, you can go on over to TamieMCoaching.com. There's a link at the bottom of the page to book a free strategy session with me. I'd be happy to chat with you and answer your questions, or you can always just drop me a comment or send me a private message as well. So how do we know that we're not actually the narcissist, right? When we're new to this whole conversation and trying to make sense of a lot of the bullshit that we've been living through and our reactions, our imperfect reactions to a lot of the stuff that we've been on the receiving end of, sooner or later we're probably going to ask ourselves that question. We're going to wonder, right? Especially if we're being honest and we're taking an honest inventory of ourselves, our attitudes, again, our imperfect behavior. Often we are having what is actually a very normal, healthy, legitimate response to very abnormal behavior, circumstances, environments. But because we have been so gaslighted, gaslighting meaning, in case you're not sure what that means, what I mean by that is gaslighting is when someone causes you to doubt your reality, messes with your head to the point that you're not sure what's up, what's down, right? Constant exposure to emotional, psychological, spiritual, as well as physical abuse will leave you really unsure of what's right, what's wrong. It can be very confusing to be in these environments dealing with one or a number of individuals that are of that nature, right? So we find ourselves really unsure. And often the reality is, like I said, we are having what is actually a normal reaction to very abnormal circumstances. And often that started a very, very long time ago and set us up to attract more of the same in our adult life. But because we have a heart and some compassion and some empathy and a very sincere desire to grow, evolve, change, make things work, sooner or later we're likely to ask ourselves the question, how do I know for sure I'm not the narcissist? And if we're being dirt honest, we'll have to admit, damn, I've been pretty freaking abusive in response to being abused. Often we'll leave out that latter part though, right? Man, I've been pretty abusive too. But check in with yourself. Have you been outright abusive, or have you been abusive in response to being abused? Big difference. Now, I'm not condoning, I'm not saying it's okay, someone's abusing you, therefore abuse them back. But sometimes our survival is at stake, right? So give yourself a little bit of credit. Have you been abusive in response to being abused, or are you abusive by nature? Right? So there's a lot of things at play here, a lot of things that go on, but here's the thing. The fact that you are asking that question at all holds the answer. The fact that you ask that question at all holds the answer. That is the truth. Because if you are a true blue, dyed-in-the-wool, high end of the spectrum, destructive narcissist, you aren't asking that question. An actual narcissist, which is a destructive narcissist, okay, when we throw the word narcissist around, what we're talking about is high end of the spectrum destructive narcissism. And again, I need a tissue. Every time I go live, I get the sniffles. I can't quite for the life of me make the connection as to what it is, but let me just handle that. So where was I? A narcissist will never ask themselves that question. The very fact that you are asking that question at all holds the answer. A true blue, dyed-in-the-wool, destructive narcissist is constitutionally incapable of being that kind of self-reflective. Even if at times they'll feign self-reflection while they're trying to manipulate you, the reality is it's very short-lived, and it's part of an agenda, part of a manipulation. The reality is they actually don't have the internal equipment, the internal tools to be that kind of self-reflective, that they would sit back and wonder to themselves, am I a narcissist? Like, how do I know I'm not a narcissist? So again, the very fact that you're asking that question holds the answer. It shows that you have a certain level of empathy, of compassion, and of self-reflection, the ability to self-reflect, to take your own inventory and ask some really hard, difficult, uncomfortable questions. So right there is the answer. But there's more to this story. There's a reason why we ask that question beyond just having the ability to be self-reflective and honest with ourselves and others. And if we get dirt honest, we'll have to admit that there are times when we are entitled and we are grandiose and we are selfish and self-centered, and we can be abusive right back in response to being abused, and we can be emotionally immature. So if we're being honest and taking our own inventory, we'd have to admit that there are times when some of the classic manifestations, some of the classic character traits of a destructive narcissist, we are in possession of. So what the hell is going on? Well, the reality is, as untreated codependents who are a match to a destructive narcissist, we too have underdeveloped narcissism. We have underdeveloped narcissism. And this is a big part of the reason why so many of us at a certain point early in recovery will ask this question. Because in being honest with ourselves, we know there are times where we actually fit that description to some degree. So what does that mean? So here's the thing. At 4 years old, it's perfectly normal to be a full-fledged narcissist, right? Our nose is in our navel, we're hanging on to our toesies, the world is all about us, everything's all about us. We're 4, it's normal. We're a narcissist, right? Now, if we're 4 years old and we're fortunate enough to be raised in, growing up in a relatively healthy environment where we have reasonably or relatively healthy caretakers, parents, whatever, reflecting back to us in a healthy manner, attaching to us, affirming us, validating our sense of self, our self-esteem, our inherent value just because we are, we are going to develop, we are going to grow emotionally, healthily. We are going to grow and develop psychologically and spiritually healthily. It's a mouthful, but in a healthy way, right? Because we are being nurtured and guided and supported on many different levels, in particular emotionally and psychologically. So at 4 years old, we're full-fledged narcissists, which is perfectly freaking normal in human development. And as we are nurtured, we grow and evolve in a healthy way, and we develop what is called healthy narcissism. Healthy narcissism is I have a healthy sense of self. I have a healthy relationship with myself, which then extends to a healthy relationship to others and the world. I have a healthy sense of self-esteem. I have internal and external boundaries that help me function in a healthy way in my interpersonal relationships with other people and the rest of the world. I have developed healthy narcissism. But unfortunately for many of us, experts estimate 85 to 95% of us grew up in dysfunctional, unhealthy, environments, homes, being influenced by folks who did not have the equipment to attach to us in a healthy way, nurture us. We're either abandoned or completely enmeshed, or some bizarre combination of that, enmeshed with rather, or some bizarre combination of that. We are on the receiving end of all manner of distorted messages, never mind all the ways in which many of us have been abused, neglected, all of that. So at 4 years old, when you are a full-fledged narcissist, which is normal in human development, and you unfortunately find yourself in that type of environment to whatever degree, what happens is you do not develop healthy narcissism. You do not develop healthy narcissism. Now, this is a huge subject and there's a lot of things at play here, but for the sake of keeping it succinct for the conversation today, depending on the level of neglect, abandonment, abuse, trauma, and how young we were when that took place. Were we newborns? Were we 6 months old? Was it the first 4 years of our life with consistency? Was it here and there intermittently? So what equipment did we land on the planet with to begin with? So depending on a whole bunch of factors, if we don't find ourselves in an environment where we are being nurtured in a healthy way, we don't develop healthy narcissism. And to keep it succinct and simple for today without going down too many really, really deep rabbit holes, because these are big subjects, as a result of that, in short, in brief, very simply, some of us become destructive narcissists. Some of us, I believe, it has to do with landing on the planet with very high empathy, maybe don't go down the track of, the full-fledged split in our psyche and becoming a full-fledged destructive narcissist, but we do become codependents. In other words, we develop maladaptive ways of surviving, of relating, first to ourselves and then to others and the world at large, which sets us up to be a magnet to destructive narcissists in our adult lives. But more importantly, like I said, we don't develop healthy narcissism. So depending on the severity of the codependency, how untreated is it? How long has it been going on? How far has it progressed? These are progressive issues. They get worse, never better. So how severe was the trauma? How severely untreated is our codependency, our adult child syndrome? And as a result of the answers to those questions, we step into adulthood with underdeveloped narcissism, which means that we aren't necessarily full-fledged narcissists, destructive narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, borderline personality disordered, narcissistic personality disordered, right? Like landing on the DSM-5 as an example. We may not be that high end of the spectrum because we still have a conscience, we still have empathy, but because of our untreated codependency, we have underdeveloped narcissism, which means that we exhibit narcissistic traits. And maybe we exhibit these narcissistic traits in some areas more and other areas less. Like, for example, that'll really show up in an unhealthy marriage that's fallen apart at the seams. That's where our underdeveloped narcissism really comes to the table, because all our shit is triggered on a daily basis. But then we can go out into the workforce or with our friends or wherever and function with a little more functionality, where all of our shit is not being triggered with the same level of intensity that it is at home with our spouse, our partner, whoever, right? So I hope that makes sense to you. The good news is, if you're asking the question at all, You wouldn't be asking the question if you were a destructive narcissist. You wouldn't even be asking the question. You would not be capable of that kind of self-reflection. But just because you are not a full-blown destructive narcissist, the reality is if you are an untreated codependent who is yet to begin their own healing and recovery journey, you've got some underdeveloped narcissism. You've got some underdeveloped narcissism. There's a really good book that speaks to this that I love. You can see, like, I'm in and out of this book a fair bit. It's called Loving the Self-Absorbed. Loving the Self-Absorbed, How to Create a More Satisfying Relationship with a Narcissistic Partner. It's the only book I've ever come across that does try to be some source of, offer some source of guidance to someone who is making a decision for whatever reason to stay in that type of destructive relationship. Not a choice I have ever been capable of making. For me, the healthy decision has been to walk away, no matter what relationship we're talking about, whether that was with, parents, family of origin, romantic partners, friends, whatever. Like, that for me is by far the healthiest choice. With that said, sometimes that's not an easy option when your survival's at stake, when you have babies involved and you can't necessarily get out right away, right? So this book definitely is a source of guidance to someone who feels, stuck in that situation. It also beautifully, and I think even more importantly, explains what's going on with us that we're there to begin with, from an underdeveloped narcissistic standpoint. It really explains how in our untreated codependency, our underdeveloped narcissism is a big part of the reason that we're in the dynamic at all. And the solution to that, my friends, is codependency recovery and beginning to step on your own healing journey and deal with your own underdeveloped narcissism. Again, the good news is if you're asking the question, you're not a destructive narcissist. You have enough self-reflection to be able to stop and take your own inventory with some level of honesty. That's the good news. Doesn't mean that you don't have some work to do. Welcome to the human race on planet Earth. We all have work to do, sooner or later. Guys, I hope you got some value out of this. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to like, comment, and or share. Once again, my name is Tamie M. I am an empowerment coach for women. I help women break free from painful relationship patterns through a proven 8-week process called the Freedom Class. And if you'd like some information on that, you can drop me a comment, send me a private message, or go on over to TamieMCoaching.com. All the details are there, and there's a link at the bottom of the page to book a free strategy call with me. Thank you, friends, for hopping on. I appreciate all of you. Much love to you. As always, know your value, and unlock your freedom. And I'll look forward to catching up with you soon. Bye for now. Mwah.